Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning, everyone, for our first of hopefully some more cybercrime events. So we've worked in partnership with Bedfordshire Chamber and Bedfordshire Cybercrime Unit to bring this event together, and we've got an hour and a half or so of fantastic speakers joining us, covering all things cybersecurity. My name is Sam, and I'm the Partnerships and Events Manager at Semnet Growth Hub. And I've worked with Michael from the Cybercrime Unit in bringing this event together. So what we'll do, I'll show you in a moment just our agenda for the morning so you can get an idea of what to expect. And then we'll be hearing in turn from each of our speakers. And then if you have any questions, you'll see that there is a chat function this morning. So if you have any questions, if you'd like to direct them to the chat, we can then pick those up. We've got a dedicated slot for some Q&A time where you can come off of mute and ask away, ask the experts, and hopefully get all of your questions answered. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Michael from the Cyber Protect and Prevent team at Bedfordshire Police HQ.
Yeah, good morning. My name's Mike. I work in the cyber and fraud team at Beds Police. First of all, again, thanks to Sam and thanks for the other speakers that have kindly joined us this morning. I guess the idea, as Sam rightly mentioned, is that these sessions will hopefully sort of run quarterly. Perhaps we can get some different speakers on each session. And if there are people in the call today that do want to have a future slot, I'm going to drop my email in the chat at the end and we can get some stuff together. A little bit about me. I'm a Cyber Protect and Prevent Officer for Beds Police. Every victim of fraud in Bedfordshire comes to me. It's part of our Protect function to develop partnerships with banks, federations of small businesses, create new schemes and campaigns, which in turn help to protect potential victims. We've also got a regional cyber trust group. And I guess in turn, it then brings things like this. A big part of my role is doing presentations, workshops to local businesses, and I'll touch on that a bit further as we move through today. The other half of my role is the cyber choices function. I'm not going to talk about that because we've got the lovely Steph Frankish on the call today from the Eastern Region Special Operations Unit. She'll explain a bit more later how you can get involved and how you can help the young people that we work with.
Excellent, thank you, Mike. And quickly, I'm just going to hand over as well to Justin, Chief Executive at Bedfordshire Chamber of Commerce, just to give a quick intro to them and the support that they're offering as well.
Thanks, Sam, and good morning, everyone. As Sam said, I'm Justin, Chief Exec of Bedfordshire Chamber of Commerce, and I just wanted to come on this morning really to say that we're delighted to be working with these partners on this topic. It's a real important but often overlooked part of business resilience. So I know for us as an organisation, we're looking to learn today is probably as much as everyone else on the call, and I look forward to hearing from our experts. Thanks, Sam.
Brilliant, thanks, Justin. So without further ado, we'll go into our first sort of 10-minute slot, and that is Richard Fallon, Director at Cyber Risk Score. So I'll let you put your presentation up, Richard, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Sam. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody today? Everybody good? Good? Okay, good. Good. So I'm now going to probably do the fastest presentation you've ever seen. So is it okay? Can you listen fast if I talk fast? Is that okay? Thumbs up? Good stuff. Hopefully everybody can see that. Okay, so how do we make cybersecurity simple, straightforward, and affordable? So the first big question really is why should I worry about cybersecurity? Well, the Cybersecurity Breaches Survey, which is a government survey, found that 65% of medium businesses and 64% of large businesses reported having cyber attacks or security breaches in the last 12 months. The average direct cost was £8,460, and for medium for larger firms, the average was even higher at £13,400. Ouch. Out of them, 35% of reported stuff were negative impact, so it cost them fines, fixes, lost time, and lost business. So IBM reckons that the average data breach costs about 2.6 million by the time you've added in the fines, the fixes, the damage to reputation, all these other things. It's much higher than the £8,000. Now, if you're a small business, please remember a lot of the bigger businesses really drag up that average, but it gives you an idea of the cost and the amount of damage that can be done. A small business in the UK is hacked every 19 seconds, according to Hiscox's 2021 cyber report. The reason why that seems very high, is a lot of small businesses do not know they've been hacked. I know it's on average, it takes about 9 months for a company to realize it's been hacked, and that can be a bigger company. Small companies kind of had their website hacked and don't know about it for a long time. Unlike one of my friends who found out really early on he'd been hacked. So one of the biggest threats we're seeing is supply chain hacking. So this was a survey done by Blue Voyant, who are a US cybersecurity firm, who had an independent survey team do this. And he said, it came back to say a whopping 97% of firms have been impacted by a cybersecurity breach in their supply chain. And 93% admitted that they have suffered a direct cybersecurity breach because of weaknesses in their supply chain. So what we're seeing is basically hackers know that big companies are phenomenally well protected. They spend millions and a lot of time and money in protecting themselves from cybersecurity attacks. What happens though, and I'm going to give you an example later on, is they get into their smaller suppliers as a way to get into their systems. So that supply chain hacking is becoming a bigger thing. So it's almost like we've got to look after a supply chain cybersecurity, not just our own, because that's becoming more and more a target. And as we've seen, small businesses are hacked regularly. So the whole thing about cybersecurity, to a lot of people, especially small businesses, if you're not a cybersecurity business, it can appear to be complex. Kind of like Inception by Christopher Nolan, the film. It's kind of quite complex, and there's lots of moving parts, lots going on. It can be confusing. And again, like the film Inception by Christopher Nolan, where my dad stood up at the end and asked the entire audience of the cinema, and he was quite proud of this, to explain the film to him, because he was very confused. He didn't know what was going on. And I think that's the same with a lot of small businesses on cybersecurity. And finally, it can seem very costly. Maybe not the $160 million it took to kind of film Inception, but it's expensive. So how can we make this simple, straightforward, and affordable? Well, I've kind of put together a simple 5-step plan that you can do that will actually increase your cyber resilience and increase your cybersecurity levels. So the first one is, number one, update your software regularly. So your software often comes with patches or updates, whether that's on your phone, whether it's on your laptop, if that's Microsoft. What they'll do is those updates often have security patches in, so they make you less vulnerable. A big one that's often forgotten though, if you have a website, if you can get into it, update the plugins on it. If it's a WordPress website, and that's one of the most popular, if it's a Joomla website, all of these things are built with plugins. And one of the biggest hacks was the Paradise Papers, and how they got into that was through a plugin that hadn't been updated on a website. So remember to update the plugins on your website, or get your website designer to do that for you. And remember, set these things automatically update where possible, so you don't have to think about it again. It just does it in the background. Number two, update your passwords. Passwords is one of the biggest ways that people kind of get into your systems is through passwords. They have like brute force, where people just keep trying different combinations of letters and symbols to try and get into it. I know a hacker in 2013 proved that he could get into a system, a Windows system, with an 8-character password, including symbols, letters, upper and lowercase characters, within 6 hours. So, and this was going back 10 years now. So it gives you an idea. You use so what I'd say, update passwords, use different passwords for each system you've got. They should ideally have more than 12 characters in. And a really good tip is to use 3 to 4 random words followed by a number and symbol. So there I'll give you an example, because that's easy for you to type in your phone, easy for you to remember, very hard for somebody to hack. That's going to take them a lot to get into that. And then finally, enabling 2-factor authentication where you can. So in other words, if you're logging into something, that you have to log into your phone as well to prove it's you. Get some training for your staff. That's a really nice resource from the National Cybersecurity Centre. There's a 30-minute training video. So have a look at that. That's a key thing, because a lot of your vulnerabilities come in through mistakes your staff make. So they're getting a lot of times. Get some cyber insurance. Cyber insurance is great. It gives you, I've said that it gives you some protection. What we're seeing now is a lot of insurance companies won't cover you for ransomware attacks, where you've been locked out your systems and all that, if you haven't taken necessary measures. It's kind of like the same way they wouldn't cover you if you'd left your front door and back door open and went on holiday for a week. They wouldn't cover you for being burgled. It's the same way with ransomware. So, but it is good, definitely something you should put in place. Next one is do some vulnerability scanning, because your website is vulnerable to cyber attacks. That's where most people have most of their It's your digital window into the world, shall we say. It's where most people are kind of exposed. What happens is people hack into your website, put on malware on that. Malware is malicious software. A virus is a form of malware. You've probably heard of viruses. And what it does is collects data. So as people go in, they log in, they pick up the email and login details, or if they're asking contact us or signing up to your newsletter, they'll take their details, and then that allows them to kind of email you pretending to be them, or email them pretending to be you, to try and get you to open a piece of malware that they've attached, like an attachment which leads to ransomware. So it's a good idea to do a regular vulnerability scan. This finds all of the bits on your website where a hacker could get in. A penetration test, which you might have heard of, goes one step further and looks at how those vulnerabilities can be exploited, but it's considerably more expensive than a vulnerability scan. One of the things we get asked a lot, does my host cover my website security? No, it doesn't. So like HostGator, One-on-One, all of these places, they don't. If you build a website in Wix or WordPress, you're not covered by any of them either. Your website security is down to you. So there's quite a few things that will help you vulnerability scan out there. Cyberisco is one of them. So this is something we've put together specifically for businesses to help them with the vulnerability scan, make it simple, straightforward, and affordable as possible. So we do this for $44.95 a month, makes it very affordable. I think that's with the lowest price on the market. What we do is scan your website. We then give you a score out of 1,000 that looks like this. So it gives you exactly like a credit score. You get your result every month and it gives you a score. And you can kind of say, I need to do something or I don't need to do something. You then go down to the second layer. That gives you all the vulnerabilities found. It also gives you the severity. So it tells you, here's the ones you need to fix first. So that SQL injection, that's really damaging your score. You want to have that as priority, and then you can go down that list. We do not fix any of vulnerabilities. The reason for this is we want to remain independent. We want you to know that this is the report, this is a score. We've not inflated it. We've not added vulnerabilities that aren't there. And it will run again next month. So what you can do with this is go out, tender for work, find the best price, get it done. And you can see next month on your report if it's been fixed or not. So that's the second level. The third level, if you click on one of those view details, this is aimed at whoever's doing the fix for you. It describes the vulnerability. It tells you the solution. This is from OWASP. It's an internationally recognized standard. We've not made this up ourselves. This comes from that. And the thing you probably see down there on your left is things saying raw data. I've not listed that. We're the only, I think, only vulnerability scanner where we tell you every URL, every place that vulnerability occurs. So it makes it very easy for an IT person to find and fix for you. So final little tip, 5.1, is if you've got a supply chain, you really should do some supply chain monitoring, especially if you have sensitive share systems or sensitive information. Why? This was Target, who are a big US retailer. In December 2013, about 40 to 70 million customer records, including credit card numbers, were stolen. And that caused over $200 million worth of damage, including brand damage. How did they get in? They got in through the heating, ventilation, and air condition subcontractor. They hacked that company, and these guys had permission to remotely access Target's network. And that's how they got into Target. That's a good example of how supply chain hacking works. They get in the smaller subcontractor, they get into the big company systems, and that's where the real damage occurs. So what Cyberisco will do is allow you to not only see your own Cyberisco, but you can actually connect with suppliers. You can at the moment ask them for the score so they can send it to you, but later this year you'll be able to send them an invite like LinkedIn where they accept it, and you can see their score and it's updated, so you can clearly see where your vendors are and how exposed you are. Maybe you need to talk to them about increasing their cybersecurity. So I think I've just gone over my 10 minutes. So I'm Richard Fallon. If you want to get hold of me, richard@crscore.com. I will put that in the chat box. I do have slides from much longer hour talk if you want some more information on cyber essentials, things like that, which I'm happy to send to you. And if you want to get your score, it's www.cr-score.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. That was brilliant. Some great stats there and useful information for everybody. And that 5-step plan, I think, was really valuable. So I will say thank you quickly to you now, because I know you do need to drop off early. So if anyone does have any questions for Richard, I'm happy to take them offline and send them over to Richard following the session. just pop them in the chat as and when they come up, and then I can always pass them over to Richard. And as we said, we'll pop his details in the chat if you do want to follow up any further with him at Cyber Risk. So moving on, we are now going back to Mike, and he is going to give us 10-15 minutes or so on a law enforcement perspective. Over to you, Mike, and I'll just put your slides up.
Perfect, cheers, Sam. Perfect. My email's on that front screen there, as Richard has done. I'll also drop that in the chat. Next slide, please, Sam. Just briefly, I wanted to touch upon our structure. So our regions are guided by the NCSC, the National Cybersecurity Centre. My region being URSU, the Eastern Region Special Operations Unit. They are our coordinators, if you like. And then there's the equivalent of me as a protect officer within each force. So if you're on the call today and you're not in Bedfordshire, later on I'm going to be talking about some of the free resources we can give you. Get in contact with me and I'll point you in the direction of your local protect officer. The protect remit itself is essentially to understand what the threat is and to ensure that you guys can respond appropriately. We as a protect function deliver products, services, materials to empower you as individuals and as businesses, and ultimately help you better protect yourself. The guidance provided by the NCSC is there to show that actually cybersecurity doesn't need to be daunting. If you're a small business owner, it doesn't need to be a big challenge. And the guidance is designed to increase your protection from the most common crime types, protect your data, protect your assets, and ultimately your business reputation. Next slide, please, Sam. Thank you. So a local perspective, kind of what we see in Bedfordshire, we have between 100 to 150 victims of fraud every single week, and that's both from individuals and businesses. Of course, on that sheet, we have people that haven't lost any money, also, sadly, people that have lost their entire life savings, businesses that lose over half their yearly revenue in one go. This morning, I wanted to focus on one of our biggest issues that we see, and that simply put is that businesses and individuals take a reactive approach rather than being proactive. I know Francis is going to be talking after me. He's on the call today. He also sees this on a daily basis, and a little later on, I'm going to go through an example that actually we received into force on Monday to give you an idea of a reactive approach. I think most certainly elements that Richard spoke about and myself I'm going to talk about now in future conversations. There's things we can all take away on a personal note to ensure that we don't become victims. As I say, in my role, in contact with victims who have lost their entire life savings, that could be from a investment fraud or romance fraud. Most of our work comes down to trying to help them find the best resolution. And actually, if you're a victim of cybercrime, individually or as a business, the ultimate resolution or the best resolution is usually your money back. Being a victim of a ransomware attack, for example, is no different. The majority of suspects and organised criminal groups are overseas. So actually, in reality, it's so important that as a business, we protect ourselves the best we can. I guess on that ransomware note, the back end of last year, a UK construction company succumbed to a ransomware attack. The ransom demand for them was 1.1 million. They made a payment of £550,000. Would it have cost them £500,000 if they had the best protection possible? I think we all know the answer to that. So when you're a victim of fraud, you are to report to Action Fraud. If you were to lose any money, you'd phone your bank and they'd say, yep, contact Action Fraud. That's the UK's National Reporting Centre for Fraud and Cybercrime. If you've been scammed, defrauded, or experienced cybercrime, that's the place you're supposed to go. They offer you some protection. In reality, what they do is they skim off the top. They with London being the lead force, they don't actually investigate the crime. They'll collate the information and disseminate it to your local force. Hence why, little old Bedfordshire, we get up to 150 reports a week. We still have to prioritise those as to who's the most vulnerable. Are there any leads of inquiry in the UK? How far can we take this? In reality, again, putting this in a local perspective, if you've bought a pair of shoes off Facebook Marketplace for 50 quid, and that person selling them to you has got a fake Facebook profile and they live overseas, that's not going to be investigated. The police will not spend time on a £50 fraud where suspects reside overseas. It costs too much money and we don't have the resources. And I guess in that same note, that being said, the vast majority of online cybercrime does occur overseas. And whilst our digital media investigators in the room behind me, yes, they're set up to chase down IP addresses and email logins. And the predominant focus of our serious fraud team downstairs is to look at those high harm frauds, so courier frauds, romance frauds, offences against repeat victims, the most vulnerable in our society. We sadly do not have the capability and the capacity to investigate every report of fraud. So that's why, as a business, we need to ensure that we take that reactive approach rather than coming to the police afterwards saying, I need your help. Next slide, please, Sam. Thank you. Richard touched on this briefly in terms of the cybersecurity breaches survey. I did just want to include it. He's kind of, without boring you, he's given us the stats that we need to know. Again, there needs to be a huge change in the way businesses actually view cybersecurity. 2 in 5 businesses and a quarter of charities reported having a cybersecurity breach in the last year. Again, from a local perspective, we see between 2 to 4 ransomware attacks every week currently. As I say, I'm going to give you an insight as to what one of them looked like a little later on. Next slide, please, Sam. Thank you. Now, whilst, as like probably Francis and some of the other speakers on this call could spend a good couple of hours talking about each crime type, phishing and social engineering itself is the most common and most successful attack method for criminals, targeting both us as individuals and businesses. And that's because it's easy to do and most of the time successful. I would say of the 150 victims we get every week, just in Bedfordshire, 80% of those have been socially engineered. Now, I wasn't going to have a little rant, but I will. Whilst all these terms that we're all going to hear on today's call, social engineering is psychological manipulation. It is designed to trick you into making security mistakes, giving away your information. And for me, you're going to hear on this call today that people will use the term so-and-so fell for a scam. I hate that phrase. My previous role within a certain financial institution, to name no names, every victim, whether you're a business or personally, you'd be put into 2 categories. You're either a victim of fraud or a victim of a scam. A fraud victim would see their funds returned, and a scam victim, well, all sorts of questions would be thrown in to try and determine who's liable for that transaction. Most fraud is psychological manipulation. I would argue you don't fall for domestic abuse. You don't fall for being a victim of burglary. In my opinion, a lot of work needs to be done nationally on the psychological aspect of fraud. And I think once we better understand that, then the preventative measures that we're all going to discuss in today's call does become a lot clearer. Well, rant over. Back to social engineering. What is it? We've all heard of it. Attackers, they essentially trick you into doing the wrong thing. So clicking a bad link, maybe, that might download some malicious software. It might direct you to a dodgy site. They tend to disguise themselves as a trustworthy source, perhaps your bank or a telecoms company, with the aim to make you click on that bad link or give away your personal and financial information. With every fraud, there's a sense of urgency, there's a sense of a threat and an outcome. We all know that numbers can be spoofed. The amount of victims we speak to every day that they say, well, actually, the text came through my phone and I thought it was Barclays. Bit of software that's dead easy to use, and fraudsters use that same software. Next slide, please, Sam. Thank you. Is prevention better than cure? Short answer, yes. I'll put a different spin on it. The colleague, Sean, who's now left us, he argued that actually from a police perspective, it's easier to find a suspect in a murder than it is a cybercrime. And unfortunately, that's the reality of it. When suspects of a cybercrime are in the UK, we do allocate for investigation. We look at all lines of inquiries. And as I mentioned earlier on, all forces have a serious fraud team, digital media investigators who perhaps, I don't know, at a murder, they would download devices, look for any communication that would aid in the conviction of a suspect. The majority of cybercrime attacks stem from outside of the UK. And like any organisation, those on today's call, The police and the government are no different. We have spending, we have budgets, and you have to look at two things. And those things that people look at are priority and resources. If your suspect organised criminal group is in Russia, Nigeria, Ghana, the best we can do is package it together, get all evidence we can, and send it over to the embassies and the Foreign Office to notify the forces in those countries. Now we look at priorities. Same with Bedfordshire. For a country such as Nigeria, again, they're going to say, yeah, that's great, but we have murders, knife crimes, rape, burglaries, child exploitation. The list goes on. Fraud sits at the bottom of that pile. Nobody's died. So whilst that reciprocating country will accept that transfer, it gets swept under the carpet. I go back to what I said earlier on. The ultimate resolution is your money back. Protecting yourselves so that you're equipped to deal with a cyber attack is far more beneficial than being complacent and expecting everyone to mop up pieces when things go wrong. I mentioned right at the top of this presentation here that part of my role is to give business presentations, create some educational events such as this. Arguably, the information we provide isn't brand new information. It does tend to fall down to complacency. I'm in Bedfordshire, Luton's 20 minutes down the road. A couple of years back, we approached EasyJet in the October. We were greeted with a negative, we don't want law enforcement response. In the January following, so a few months later, they had a data breach. 9 million of their customers' email addresses and travel details have been stolen. That included credit and debit card details. And of course, when things went wrong, they were knocking on Bedfordshire Police's door saying, how can we help? We came to you a few months earlier. Just goes to show. Next slide, please, Sam. Thank you. So as a cyber protect function, obviously we give this advice to individuals and businesses. Richard's touched upon them earlier on as well. Strong separate passwords, 3 random words, the new guidance by the National Crime Agency, 3 random words and a mixture of numbers and special characters. So that's something we can all do now, every online account that we have. Use a password manager. With a password manager, you don't have to remember your unique password. It stores them for you and helps you generate random and new ones. 2-factor authentication, something we can actually all do now. I guess as cybercrime gets more sophisticated, companies will find that their old security systems aren't really a match for the new threats, should we say, and attacks. And actually, sometimes, as Richard touched upon, sometimes it's actually human error that leaves you exposed. So 2-factor authentication is that extra layer of security. First of all, you're going to have a username and password. Then actually, instead of gaining immediate access, you have something you know, something you have, and something you are. Right now, I did actually mention earlier on in the call, there's something we can all take away on a personal note. Right now, can we all do it? It takes 30 seconds, pick up your mobile phone, go to WhatsApp, click on settings. The third one down says account. The third one down again says 2-step verification. Do it now, it takes 30 seconds, a 6-digit code that only you know, and it literally can be that simple to add an extra layer of security for your accounts. Go home today, tell your family, tell your friends to do the same. Updating your devices, as Richard mentioned, repairing security holes that might have been discovered, removing or fixing computer bugs. I guess updates now can add new features. We'll remove the outdated ones. And actually, as Steph will talk about later on with our little hackers that we have, hackers love a software vulnerability. They can write the code that can target that vulnerability. So rather than leaving your devices open to being exploited, just ensure you update your devices. The last couple here, backups. Ensure you have a complete backup ready to use, ready to restore, no matter why that loss occurred. Again, the example I'm going to give you in a moment shows actually the poor use of a backup. They can be local, they can be backup, and actually more businesses now are migrating to the cloud, so having secure sort of off-site copies of your data, which can be accessed via the internet. That last bullet point I'm going to talk about in a second. Sam, could you go to next slide, please? So looking at the bottom bullet point on that previous slide in regards to having relevant policies and procedures in place, essentially it falls down to your business as how well you're going to manage your fraud risk. We look at things like internal controls, establishing what I like to call a tone at the top, ensure that your company, your fraud risk is minimal, and at best you've put in the protective measures to ensure your company doesn't fall victim. I would argue that actually effective deterrence of cybercrime requires a dynamic and different approach that actually involves all aspects of fraud. So you'll look at your systems, your products, your processes, internal and external threats. As I say, internal can even be your employees. And actually, I would again argue that these need to be continuous and effective, because actually, it again falls to complacency that we leave our business static. It can be out of date. Things fail to work, and again, might not cover any new or emerging risks. Just on that note, I think again it boils down to sort of an anti-fraud culture within the organisation, encouraging staff to report that suspicious activity, encouraging your staff to report that accidental action that they did. As I say, usually it falls down to complacency, as I'm about to tell you on my next slide. The attitude that actually, unfortunately, it will never happen to me. We get cyber dependent reports every Tuesday, and every single one of them is begging for police help. Right, next slide, Sam, please. Thank you. So our example, I'll keep it as brief as I can, and also try and keep it as anonymous as I can. So this report came to us last Tuesday. On the Sunday, the boss of this company noticed that they had no email access, and unrecognised software, hopefully we've all heard of it, AnyDesk, was running in the background. Their initial investigation revealed that actually cyber criminals hacked into their systems several weeks prior to the attack, deactivated their antivirus, carried out what we call reconnaissance, and then encrypted a portion of their backup servers. Now, no files were removed from their systems. The attackers managed to copy a large number to a single location on a virtual drive, which actually for the company was purposefully kept empty. The reason behind the crash, or the reason behind the server crash, was because the virtual drive they kept empty was critical to their backup process. Now, the failed backup was a known issue in their system, but one they had not yet discovered a fix for. And from our initial communications, the words that came back were actually they had several upgrades to their systems in the pipeline, including replacement firewalls, including group policy updates, a few other projects that were going to improve their overall security. They were in the pipeline, they've not been implemented yet. And suddenly this attack happened. They were okay, but now suddenly this is fast tracked their need and their keenness to get these sorted out. The words were in an email that the attackers now accelerated their plans. It prompted them to do a penetration test of their company's network, and actually prompted them to sign up to the Eastern Region Cyber Resilience Centre, which we've got Fiona on the call today. It's free for you, it's free for them, and it's something they were going to do. Unfortunately for them, they waited and waited and waited, and they were hit with that attack. Okay, so no financial costs, but we then look at things. Well, you know, he mentioned that the service were interrupted. The interruption of their staff's daily activities, their reputational damage moving forward. So it just goes to show that actually there's things that can be put in place prior to this happening. Right, final slides, please, Sam. So I guess me as a service, or the equivalent of me in your area as a service. To finish up, as I mentioned at the start, there is the equivalent of me in all regions. I'm going to stick my email in the chat in a moment. And as a Cyber Protect officer, we deliver cybersecurity awareness training. This training comes in the form of Lego. The idea of this exercise is that participants in your company now own a business. There's no physical or cybersecurity involved in place. And the participants, whoever's taken on this task, are given a yearly budget with multiple purchase options in order to make your company more secure. During that exercise, you're given different scenarios, different outcomes based on your decisions, and it has a direct impact on your turnover. And again, it's all based on real life situations, what's happening in terms of current threats. And this is delivered free, takes about an hour and a half. If you're interested, if you think that you've got people in your company that would benefit, bearing in mind, it does get quite competitive, actually. The most recent one we did at Central Beds College IT team. There is the perfect game. Even IT experts couldn't play the perfect game. Your local Protect officer can also conduct a cyber basic review on your behalf, which is essentially a basic set of questions designed to encourage you and expand your thinking around network security. What else we do? We're sponsors for CISP, Cybersecurity Information Sharing Partnership, which is a joint industry and government initiative. And actually, we're also advocates for the Cyber Resilience Centre and the Police Cyber Alarm, which we're grateful enough to have DI, Fiona Bale, on the call today. Again, she's going to explain a little later how that works. One final slide, Sam, just to leave you with this, to finish up. It shows you, or it demonstrates actually, that sometimes a security flaw may not be your fault. A third-party company breach could be the trigger that means actually you as an individual or an organization is now the target. Half of these you can see, you won't hear any publicity. And again, it shows you why as a business and individually, we need to be proactive in our steps to having better cybersecurity. Thank you, that's all from me. Hopefully I've not run over my time too much. I'll hand you back over to Sam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. And quite eye-opening stuff there on some of the severities of cyber breaches that you've come across. And I wonder how many of us did that WhatsApp two-factor authentication while Mike was speaking. Maybe he can pop it in the chat how to do that in case anyone missed it. But thank you, Mike. Some really quick, easy top tips there that we can all take to try and be a bit more secure. So now we are going to head over and see Francis. He is CEO at Westech. So Francis, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sam. And first of all, let me say thank you to Mike for the invite to do this today. Mike knows me well, and also Fiona. I sit with her on a panel at the CRC. I now, for my sins, sit on 5 different security panels. I work with 7 cyber units. I'm also the national lead for cybersecurity for FSB. I eat and sleep and live this stuff. I run an IT support company who absolutely specializes day in and day out on helping small businesses to protect themselves from hackers and scammers. Hence why you can probably see behind me, my mission is actually to educate and protect at least 1 million people from hackers and scammers by 2023. And people ask me, where are you now? I said, I think I'm around about the 600,000. He says, how do you work that out? I said, well, I post every day on LinkedIn, and I'll share one of my links one of my posts I did on Sunday. And I average between 3 to 110,000 views a day. And for me, it's, you know, my team and I on a daily basis deal with cases, you know, that's very sad, because a lot of this stuff has a massive impact on what happens to people after they suffer cyber attacks. And of course, I've got thousands of stories and case studies that I can share. But you've heard a lot, you know, already from Michael and from Richard about different things. And there, if you look at the National Cybersecurity Center, there are 4, one could argue 5 if you include cyber awareness training. There are 4 key areas that any business needs to focus on. Number 1, they need to protect their devices. But here's the shocker. Most people are still using old antivirus technology. And if I tell you this stuff is not even 43% effective against known threats, and every second there's 4 unknown threats being released on the planet. So by the time they play catch up, there's about a 2-week delay. If you can imagine 2 o'clock in the morning, somebody is sending files out from your computer, normal antivirus solutions would think you're working late. You need a solution that can detect behavior and then intercept, kill, and report within 3 seconds. The second thing, which is what I'm going to focus on today, is to use a very effective password manager, and I'll explain why. The third one is to use email security. Do not rely on Office 365 or G Suite to do your emails, because they do not do email security. 91% of attacks coming by email, and so many people are getting caught because they're relying on their staff member to be the judge whether this email has just landed on the inbox. Is that a link that they should click on or not? And then, of course, finally, you need to back up your data. So let's move on. Let's focus on backups, on passwords today. People always, you know, I use the analogy of, why do we live longer? We live longer because of early detection, better medicine, better everything else. Cybersecurity, in my head, works on exactly the same principle. Why? Because if you have the right systems in place, you'll be able to detect a threat or an attack instantly, which means you can take precaution and obviously act upon it and make sure that the damage is either minimum or none. So our first slide I want to, and I'll gladly share with you all my links. As we are looking at the screen, and I hope you can all see it, We use one of our key firewalls that we use to deploy for all our clients in the UK. It's called SonicWall. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a live attack map. This is going on right now as we speak. And if you want to check the date, it says here 11/12. And if you look at your PC or Mac, you'll see it's 11/12. So right now, United States is launching most attacks, then followed by Australia, Denmark. From a receiving end, United States are being attacked most, then United Kingdom, then India. And again, I'll share these. You can have a look at your eyes for your own interest. And down the bottom here, you can see what type of attacks they are. Let me go on. I'll tell you a quick story. The other day, there was last year, my local, what do you call it, cricket club asked if I could go and help them install their router. I said, of course, because, you know, I like cricket and everything else. And you will know that I'm going to name and shame TalkTalk now, because TalkTalk send them a router. You will not believe me if I tell you that the username was admin and the password was admin. Now, here's the problem. If you go on to showdown.io, you will find all these unsecure industrial control systems, database system, networking, video games, webcams from around the world listed here for anybody to log on right now. So here's my first tip of the day. Please make a list of every single device that you currently have in the house and at home, and make sure that you've changed the default password. Because if you haven't, Showdown has gone around the planet and listed your devices for free. So of course, coming back to the router, you know, if I didn't go and change that admin, can you imagine? They would have not only got into their router, but they would have been able to look at the CCTV cameras and look at the tills, everything in our cricket club. Let's move on. The next thing I want everybody to do today is to go and type in your email address in this website called Have I Been Pawned? It's brilliant. Why? Because it tells you how many times and potentially by whom have compromised your password. Now, we're all on Zoom right now. My question to you is this. Have you changed your password for Zoom since last April? And the reason why I'm asking is because last April, Zoom lost 500,000 email addresses and passwords. And that's now sitting for sale on the dark web. And if you don't know what the dark web is, that's where you can buy AK-40s, 47s, child porn, any drug of choice, and have it delivered to your house this afternoon. I'll tell you another quick story. This doctor phones me up the other day from Australia. He said, Francis, I'm really concerned. I've got this email through that they've got a video of me sitting in front of my laptop masturbating. And he says they threatened that if I do not pay them X amount of Bitcoin, that they're going to send it to all my patients and also to my wife. Now he's married and he's got 2 kids. The poor guy was in such a state. And I said, let's call him John. I said, John, let me assure you 110% that this is a scam. And then I took him through the whole process. So we did a dark web audit report on him. I showed him the process of how they buy or how they bought his email address, how they then targeted him in the email campaign. And of course, it's a numbers game. Hackers are by nature very clever people, but lazy people. They always go for the easy targets. And that's why, for me, password management is so important. So the first thing you need to do is put your, I'll just put in one of my old email, no, my existing email address just for fun. Let me put that in just so you can see nobody's immune. I'll use one of my, I use my Westec email address. Let's have a look at that one. Now look at this. This email address, I mean, this is about 12 years old, has had 11 breaches so far. Look at this. And some of these people I don't even know. Apollo, City 0 Day, Cove, Dropbox back in 2012, lost 68 million records, of which my email address was one of them. Now, this is not a problem because it's not my fault that these companies lost my data. What would be my fault is if I use the same password for my email account, for my Dropbox account, for my baby alarm account, for my Amazon accounts. And that's where the problem is. And that's why, for me, password manager or using a password manager is the cheapest way that any individual or business can protect themselves from being hacked or scammed. And let me carry on and I'll show you why. So sorry, before I leave the screen, the other thing I want you to do is to click on modify, so it's notify at the top, and then put in your email address, and do this for your son, your daughter, your father, your brother, your mother, your sister, everybody that you care for. Put them in as well, so that at least they'll be notified when there's been a breach, so they can take action. The next site, which I love, I want to show you this one. You know, and normally if I have more time, I do an exercise and I show people how to generate a really secure password. Now, let me show you anyway, I've got time. If you look around you right now, and you look in, let's say you find 4 objects. I mean, I'm gonna write here glass, cup, keyboard, and phone. So let me type in the first word, glass. So this site tells you how long it will take to crack your password. And if you want to learn how to crack passwords, it's really easy. Go onto YouTube, type in how do I crack passwords, and they'll show you to a website where you can download what we call a brute force attack. It's a piece of software. You install it on your PC or Mac, you point to what you want to crack, press a button, and then wait. So if you have that in place, the word glass would take 7 milliseconds to crack. So if we add the next word, cup, now we're up to 2 minutes. If we add keyboard, now we're already up to 800,000 years. And now if we add the word phone, we're now up to 10 trillion years by just adding those 4 words together. So they're easy to remember, but very hard to crack. But now let's just go one step further. Let's make the last character of every word a capital. So we GLAS, capital S, CU, capital P, keyboard with a capital D, a phone with a capital E. Now we're sitting at 800 quadrillion years. Now I'm really got sad news for you all. We'll all be dead by then. So point is, this is how you generate a password that's very easy to remember, but almost impossible to crack. But then you tell me, but Francis, you know, I've got like 20, 30 accounts. How do I deal with that? Now, this is where the password manager comes in. And again, if you go onto our website and you go into products, you go password manager, you will see the password. We've done a lot of research, and the password manager that we recommend is Keeper. I mean, they've got 4 out of 5 stars with Gartner. And we've been using this now for 2 years with all our clients. It's like $5 a month. You spend more on coffee than you'll do on this. Let me show you how it works. So once you've installed it, the very first thing you do, which I want to show people, because I bet nobody knows this. If you click on the 3 dots at the top right in Chrome, and you go to settings, and you go on the left-hand side to autofill, and you then look at passwords. I've left one in there just for demonstration purposes. If you are seeing any passwords in your browser, I can get them. And I'll tell you how I get them. I'll send you an email. You'll click on one link. And now I've just installed the keylogger on your machine. And the first thing I'll do, I'll download all your passwords that you've installed in from clear text. So I beg you, please never, ever, 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 get the point, say yes when it pops up to save your passwords. Why? Because I can grab them. Whether you've got a PC or Mac, doesn't matter. And the way you fix this problem is by starting to use a password manager, because now the passwords would sit inside a secure vault, which I'll demonstrate. So here's my Keeper running. There's my data vault. And there you can see in a minute all my passwords, obviously with stars. You can see them all listed here. But the best bit for me about a password manager, and this is about how do I live longer, is the breach watch. You will not believe this, but last June, I get an email, and I'll show you. I get an alert, was it last June, last May? I get an alert to say that my Amazon password was compromised. Now look at this, okay? If I copy this password and I put it into that tool that I showed you earlier, that password takes 500 quadrillion years. So you've got to ask yourself, how did my password end up on the dark web? I'll leave it there. You can make up your own conclusions. But the point I'm making here, by using a password manager that monitors the dark web, you do not have to go and change your passwords anymore, because it will tell you when to change your passwords only when the password has been compromised. And again, let me show you how it's done. So if I go into edit, and I do, you see the little dice here? You see how it changes the password? So again, if we copy that, our minimum is 20 digits. So if I put that same password in the password crack, look at that, 3 sextillion years to crack that one. So, and again, you can make it smaller. Let's make it 11 characters, like some people say now, which I totally disagree with. And we go back into the password checker. That's only 5,000 years. Now, with the new technology today, I bet that's even half that time. So the point that I'm making here again is that if you're using a password manager, you only have to remember the one long password, and that password is to log in the morning when you log on to your password in the first place. So if I want to go to LinkedIn, for instance, all I have to remember is how to spell the word LinkedIn. So not only does it take me there, but I click on this little arrow and it takes me to my LinkedIn account and logs me in securely. So if you get a dodgy link in an email that's supposed to take you to your HMRC account or your Netflix or your Facebook account that doesn't exist, Keeper wouldn't recommend the login details for you, which I think is fantastic. It's another layer of security. And then finally, the other thing which I think is absolutely brilliant within your password manager is the fact that it can store your multi-factor authentication codes. Because if you store your codes in here, and I'll give you an example, if I go back to my Bolt, and let's just find one, there's one there. If I look at hotspot, for instance, look at this. There's my MFA code. So it's all in one secure place. And of course, everything is replicated back to my phone. So if I want to log on to anywhere, you can see there's my Keeper app. And before I get into my Keeper app, it checks my face. So unless somebody can rip my face off, they can't get into my password manager. So in short, my advice to everybody on the session today is one of your best investments you can make is to start using a very, very good password manager, because number one, it saves you time. Number two, it monitors the dark web. Number three, you don't have to go and change stuff. You know, and the list goes on and on and on. So there was one other thing I was going to show you before I finish, and this is it. I bet a lot of you have iPhones, right? Now, did you know, a lot of people don't know this, but if you, at the top, if you pull down on your iPhone and you type in the word passwords, you will find, you'll see there a little gear with passwords. If you click on the little passwords, watch this. The second one from the top says security recommendations. And may I beg you today to go onto your iPhone, there's a similar function on the other phones, and go into it, and it will tell you how many of your passwords right now has been compromised and that you have to go and fix. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Francis. That was brilliant, and great to hear, you know, how passionate you are about, you know, reducing everybody's risk. I think that's incredible, and it would be great to, if we could, if you've got a minute, to pop some of those links in that you shared on the screen for people to perhaps have a look at later on. That would be brilliant. Thank you.
Absolutely.
We next are going to head over to Steph, who is Regional Coordinator at Cyber Choices. And I think, Steph, you've got some slides to share with us.
I do indeed. If you give me a second, I shall get it up. Perfect. So yeah, thank you, Sam, and thank you, Mike, for introducing me and having me on here. I'm probably a little bit left field compared to the other guys that are speaking to you today, because I'm not giving you advice on how to protect your business and yourself from cybercrime. What I'm talking to you about today is the low-level young people that get referred to us who are hacking your systems. You know, curiosity takes over. And what we try and do with them to try and stop them from doing that. So hopefully it'll be useful, and also the type of opportunities available if you wanted to work with some of these young people, to give them the opportunities that maybe you wish you had when you were younger. So what we try and do then, we work with these young people that are referred to us, and I'll explain the type of people that are referred to us in a minute. We try and explain to them what's legal and what's not online, so they actually can make some informed choices about what they do with their devices and with technology. One of the main parts of that is increasing their awareness of what the Computer Misuse Act says, so they know what's legal and what's not. And then my favourite part, and probably all of the people I work with favourite part, is actually promoting the positive uses for their skills. Where can they go? What resources are available? What competitions are there that they can go and actually prove how good they are? Which is actually the sort of light bulb moment that I love seeing with these young people that we work with. So our network is national. We have someone that covers what I do all across the UK, including Scotland and Northern Ireland. So yeah, if you aren't local to Bedfordshire, then I can put you in touch with your local within your area. So yeah, please do let me know if you do want more information. And we are governed by the National Crime Agency and National Cybercrime Unit. So everything we do is based on research that they've conducted and carried out over the years. So referrals then, the type of people that get referred to us. So unsurprisingly, a lot of them are isolated. A lot of them have more online interaction than any other type. They have a preoccupation with either certain part of computers, so whether it's how they work, so very much more hardware and hands-on, or software side and actually the curiosity of how it works and how they can kind of reverse engineer anything and all that kind of stuff. Or it can be gaming as well. A lot of the young people we work with are into gaming, and that's where they first get involved in the, you know, hacking tools, DDoS tools, that kind of thing. So normally if I'd have longer, I'd talk to you about a bit more about how they get into the pathway of cyber dependent crime, like hacking, illegal hacking. So obviously hacking itself is a very good skill to have, and we need ethical hackers to protect us from the bad guys. But yeah, I won't go into too much details, as I'm sure a lot of you will be aware of the type of path that they might follow. A lot of them, if not all of them, they don't actually realise the wider impact of their actions. And I'll give you some examples later of young people that have actually gone on to you know, do DDoS attacks on their schools, and then the impact is a lot wider than they first believed it might be. And then a lot of them are neurodiverse. I know within the Eastern region itself, I can't talk about other regions, but in our region, we do have a very high proportion that are neurodiverse. So that is things like autistic, Asperger's, ADHD, dyslexic, etc. I don't know what the reason for that is. It's currently being looked into at a national scale to see if there is a link, and if there is a link, why that link exists. From my point of view, from the young people that I have worked with, I think it's about the preoccupation with computing and gaming. That is their interest, and that is, you know, that's what kind of interests them, and that's what kind of drives them. It's also a lot of them have got pattern brains and problem-solving brains. So actually, when they look at coding, they're able to just understand it, whereas they have that natural talent, whereas a lot of people have to learn that. And again, that could be neurodiversity, or that just, you know, that's just built within them. So yeah, that's a lot of our vulnerabilities and commonly seen characteristics that we come across when they get referred to us. So the most common reasons why people are referred, they try to, or they are successful at bypassing the firewall and parental controls. That's both at school or college, but also at home as well. So normally, if they do it at school or college, they're noticed quicker, so they then get referred to us. We've had it quite a lot where they've done it at school once or twice, and actually when the school has spoken to the parents, they said, oh yeah, they've been doing that for years, because they don't always realise what that can then lead to, and what can be done in that respect as well. You know, if they have those kind of skills, you know, they clearly should be harnessed in the right way. We get a lot of network intrusion, so they're getting access to admin accounts, other students and teacher accounts to allow them to do other things. So they get privilege escalation to get into admin. So for example, we've had young people changing the whole of the keyboard language in the school to Greek. So they're typing away and it comes out in Greek. Just because they can, just because it's funny, the curiosity of what would happen if they did do that. We do get some that aren't actually that technical. They don't go into as much detail as that and literally just guess the password, or they find out. Again, another example was at school, coming back from term time, they found that every single person was given a standard password, including the teachers. So when they tried a couple of their students and their friends, they found that they were all the same passwords. So they were like, oh, I wonder if I can get into a teacher's account, and they could. and then that allowed them to get privilege escalation. But it didn't require any kind of technical knowledge. It was just curiosity took over. And we do get quite a lot of remote access as well. So again, they find out about these kind of tools on the dark web, on hacking forums, gaming forums, and then basically just want to have a go to see what they can get access to that they shouldn't be getting access to. And probably one of the more common ones is DDoSing. So where they go online and normally on a game or something like that to get competitive advantage, they use this type of tool to send so much traffic at a person's internet connection, gaming server, to take it offline or to stress it out. So it's a booter or stressor, and then it can't handle it and it crashes. So that's really, really common. We have had that at schools before where they've actually DDoSed the school network. They haven't realized that that IT management company that was protecting that network, unfortunately, was only using one firewall for every company that they were protecting. So when they got DDoSed, the whole firewall got DDoSed and took down, which meant every single company that they were protecting got taken down at the same time. So place it, I think there was a school that he was targeting, but then there was a GP surgery, other local schools, a local hospital, and a care home as well. So again, he didn't realise the kind of wider impact of his actions, which I was talking about earlier. So this is just a case study to give you an example of how it can quite quickly escalate. So this is a Hertfordshire case study. All of the kind of motivations that you'd expect, not interested in school, he was a gamer, he did DDoS, he was involved in gaming forums, hacking forums, he was neurodiverse and autistic. So at 15, he basically decided that the DDoS tools that are available are no longer, weren't good enough, basically. So he created his own one on the back of another one. At the time, the FBI said it was one of the most powerful and most used stressor tools in the world. He commercialized it, he realized he could make money from it. So it generated over 1.7 million attacks, 600 of which he did himself. He was arrested at age 18 and he was found with over £350,000 and a load of Bitcoin as well. He was tried as a juvenile at that point and got 2 years in prison for Section 3 and Section 3A of the Computer Misuse Act. So the DDoSing itself was Section 3, and then the creation and commercialization of the DDoS tool itself was Section 3A, hence why he got the 2 years in prison. So that's just an example of how quickly it can escalate and at what point would have potentially worked if we would have worked with him on Cyber Choices, if we would have been around at this point. So that's just an example of a case study that we have worked with on the sort of the back end as he's come out of prison. So resources, then the type of resources that we refer to. So whenever we're engaging with a young person, like I said, we try and promote their positive uses for their skills. So we give them resources they can go to practice their skills legally and safely and see, how, again, like I said, how good they are as well. So these are just some of them. These, as you all know, there are so many more. We're always looking at extras, always looking at other things that we can refer them to. So if there are any that I don't speak about and you think that would be useful, and if they're paid and have some free content as well, please do let us know, because if we may already know about them, we may already have awareness of them, because we have got a prevent options database which has over 100 different resources. But yeah, these are just some of the most common ones that we talk about. So the top ones are all kind of general cybersecurity. Cybersecurity Challenge has a competition, an online on-demand competition. Again, getting them to have that bit of a light bulb moment to realise actually they're better than they thought they were. The next three are all about coding. So if they want to develop their coding, if they want to get into web development, games design, games development, ethical hacking, it all requires a knowledge of different types of coding. So we get them to have a look at that. Again, free and paid for. And the bottom three are all about ethical hacking. So if they want to actually have a go at some vulnerable machines, reverse engineer some viruses, do some ethical hacking, all with permission, all within these sites. They've all been kind of designed by ethical hackers for budding ethical hackers. And again, you know, we do loads more like bug bounties, etc. And we all signpost, depending what their particular interest is, we signpost to whatever is relevant to that young person. So working with us then, what could you do? How could you work with us? How could you get involved if you wanted to? So we work with any industry partner within our region and across the UK. And these are just some of the opportunities. There are others as well. So please do let me know if you do want to get involved. So we run intervention workshops for our most high risk individuals who potentially may have got additional caution for whatever act they did. They might not be engaging as well as they could have done with the individual engagements that we do with them. We might not feel that they're understanding the impact and what the boundaries are. So actually they need something a bit more in depth, and that's where our intervention workshops come in. So all of the higher risk individuals come together and we run a whole day with technical exercises, industry partners saying, you know, inspirational talks. We have inputs from the National Crime Agency about, you know, this is the law, this is the boundaries. We do a bit of a quiz as well. They're able to win things throughout the day. So again, kind of trying to promote that positive use for their skills. And we've had really, really good feedback because we do an ex-hacker as well. So we normally use Mike Jones who used to be an Anonymous. He's really, really impactful. So he comes along and he gives his input about, you know, what he did and how he got involved in all of it and what mistakes he might have made and what he does now. And we also have parents there as well, or guardians. They have inputs as well as the young people, and then they kind of come together and discuss. And it is really, really beneficial. We've had really good feedback. So yeah, anything like that, if you want to get involved in that, we need industry professionals to be part of that, to sponsor food, to give inspirational talks, to do the technical exercise. So yeah, please do let me know if you want to be involved. We also have work experience and mentoring opportunities. So we have young people who come across to us and they're engaging really well. And the next kind of step is the next foray into work experience to get them used to their idea of working. So how they can kind of use the skills that they've developed with us and prior to working with us into the working life. So we do day in the life of, we do placements, anything that, again, the opportunities that we come across in the industry. So again, it depends on the age. Some people we work with as young as 9, some of them are as old as sort of 25. That's kind of the oldest we've worked with so far. So obviously, depending on their age, depends on the type of opportunities that we put forward for them. But at the moment, I've got a young person who's in college. He's coming to the end of his college degree or college course now. So he really wants a paid placement. So he's wanting to go into a placement to get a bit of an idea hopefully in the long run, to be able to then go on to a paid opportunity with that company. So again, if that's your kind of interest, please let me know and I can put you in touch with his support worker. Mentoring, again, is a really good opportunity if you want to get involved and kind of mentor these young people into realising their worth, giving them that self-belief that they can get to where they want to get to and they don't have to commit crime to do it. Again, if that's your kind of interest, or if you have a way of already doing that within your company that we can kind of signpost them onto, that would be even better. And new resources, like I said, if you've got any new resources that we haven't mentioned or, you know, you've come across, please do let us know, because even if we haven't used it yet, we're always open to new ideas. We have an interventions working group across the UK, so anything new we put through to them, we get a bit of a pilot on, and yeah, so definitely let us know if you do know of anything that I haven't mentioned. And that's it. That's everything I wanted to cover. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone. If you've got any questions, please do let me know. And that is my email in there, and I'll also put it in the chat. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Steph. And yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sure you'd be happy to put your details in the chat for anyone that's interested in any of those opportunities, and working with Steph and her team. You're doing a great job in helping the younger generation and supporting them and using their skills in a positive way. So thank you and well done for that. Last but by no means least, we are going to go over to Fiona Bale from the Eastern Cyber Resilience Centre. Oh, I think you're on mute, Fiona.
That's always a good start, isn't it? Can you see my screen at least?
We can, yes.
Excellent. So first of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me to speak with you today. So I am a detective inspector. I was previously with Cambridgeshire Police, but currently seconded to the Eastern Cyber Resilience Centre as their head of cyber and innovation. I come from a background of serious and complex fraud and cybercrime investigations, so I've kind of seen actually the impact of cyber attacks firsthand. I'm here today really to explain very quickly, and I will be quick, what the CRC is, why we've been set up, and really how we can help businesses become cyber resilient. So the CRCs are a Home Office supported project. which brings together policing, industry experts and academia with the aim of increasing cyber resilience within small and medium businesses in the region, including third sector organisations. So we're a not-for-profit membership organisation led by police officers. So obviously I'm a police officer and the 2 directors of the company are also senior police officers. And members can sign up for free on our website. And we're also part of a network of cyber resilience centres across the UK. So as you can see from our lovely map, we cover the eastern half and then there's a CRC wherever you are. So if you are slightly outside our boundaries, there should be a CRC to help you there. And we've been set up really because cybercrime is increasing and businesses are one of the biggest targets. So as people have explained in the other presentations, the actual scale of cybercrime is expanding exponentially, I guess. Most people probably won't have been actually subject to a traditional crime, such as an assault or burglary, but I'm fairly confident that all of you will have had at least one phishing email, text or call. I know I get several. And we know that cybercrime is actually really vastly underreported. So although on there it says that Action Fraud has reported a £50.9 million loss, just in the east of England, just for 2001, that's probably a really conservative estimate of actually how much it is costing businesses. So there are approximately 600,000 SMEs in the eastern region, but unfortunately most businesses don't actually seem to realise that they are actually a target for cybercrime. They think they may be too small or they've actually got no data that would be useful for anyone. But criminals actually target vulnerabilities. So in the same way that a burglar would prefer an unlocked house without CCTV, those cyber criminals are actually looking for the easiest targets, and they're generally those without the fundamental cybersecurity controls in place. Now, one of the questions you might ask yourself is why we are the Cyber Resilience Centre and not the Cybersecurity Centre or something with security. But if you think about the word security, it implies that you're protected, safe, secure. But unfortunately, nothing can protect your business 100% from cybercrime. So security is kind of the wrong word that we're using. Really, we need to be empowering companies to be able to suffer a cybercrime, detect it as soon as possible, and then actually recover with a minimum loss in terms of time, data, and the financial cost to a business. And really, that's the purpose of the CRC. So although the threat's increasing, the knowledge and expertise of businesses isn't really keeping pace. That cybersecurity sector is mostly unregulated, which means that businesses sometimes can feel they don't know actually who to trust or what services might benefit them. So the CRC aims to be that starting point for businesses. So we have support and guidance to build confidence in your own knowledge and actually then affordable cyber services to test what would work for you and actually what you need. So we have free of charge membership, which aims to put businesses or help businesses put in place fundamental cybersecurity controls. So we share information, both current national guidance as well as what's actually happening in the region, so you can be aware of actually how criminals are targeting businesses. We understand that actually there's an awful lot of guidance around cyber, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. So we've developed a weekly little step email so that you can consider one little aspect of cyber resilience in bite-sized chunks, rather than having that huge reams of guidance that is going to be when I get around to it. And then we also help access affordable cyber resilience services. Those are free National Cybersecurity Centre tools, our student services and our trusted partners. So really, as a not-for-profit company, we're all about trying to give the best value for companies. So if any of our partners can deliver a service for free, we always tell companies about that option, such as Mike being able to offer security awareness training for free. And part of our aim is also to help businesses get to the stage where they're ready for cyber essentials. So we have a number of trusted partners who are all cyber resilience companies and who are also cyber essentials accreditation bodies within the Eastern region, meaning that you can help that once you're ready for cyber essentials, we can actually refer you directly to them. And by implementing the controls within cyber essentials, between 60 and 90% of attacks will be either fully or partially mitigated. So actually, as a basis of seeing how you're doing, it might be a good place to start. So I mentioned burglars like houses without CCTV. Well, Police Cyber Alarm is that CCTV for your network. It's a police-led project to help businesses and organisations understand and monitor suspicious activity. It's a free tool rolled out nationally, and it's currently live for businesses in the East. So once you become a Cyber Alarm member, you install a virtual server on your system, which is then used to collect and process traffic logs, identify suspicious activity, which enables you to put mitigation in place to actually defend yourself. And these are some of the free tools that are around that no one seems to know about. So I would suggest that all of you could actually go and do the Cyber Action Plan. It's a really simple questionnaire for either businesses or individuals, but it actually highlights whether there are some areas that require that immediate attention. And then we provide 8 cyber resilience services, which have been designed for smaller businesses, including self-employed in the third sector. So we actually work with local university students who have the knowledge and aptitude, really, who actually are looking at getting into cybersecurity in the future. So they are mentored and trained by senior ethical hackers to actually deliver the service, which means that they get really good real life experience in working with companies, both actually for that service, but also writing those reports and dealing with customers, which means that they are actually ready to go and work for companies when they finish university. And obviously that benefits those companies and potentially also critical national infrastructure, because they have that skills bank to actually protect themselves on. So we provide 3 types of vulnerability assessment, so internal, remote and web app, and they're designed to inform organisations about the weaknesses present and direction on how to reduce those risks that the weaknesses cause. So for a business actually wanting to reduce their security risk, a vulnerability assessment might be a really good place to start. You get an end report in a really plain language interpretation of the results, how many vulnerabilities might be used by an attacker, as well as instructions about how any vulnerabilities could be fixed. We provide 2 different internet investigations, one for an individual and one for a business at whole. And again, by understanding what the world knows about a CEO or a company can actually inform businesses about those potential phishing targets. So if you're publishing details about a deal with a new supplier who isn't cyber secure, could they actually become a target in the future to get to you? Or does the CEO's upcoming visit to an offshore conference give that perfect start to, I really need this money now, can you transfer it? And then we also offer security policy review to ensure that the policies that you have are actually current for what your business is threat. We do business continuity planning, which is vital in today's unfortunate when you're a victim of cybercrime rather than if. Those exercises can actually help test your planning to see if you're prepared for the when. And then phishing is still the greatest cyber threat, with 83% of businesses experiencing attacks in the last year. So your staff really need to be aware of the risks of cybercrime and how to protect yourselves and your business. So we can put in place some cyber awareness training if you require it. And I want to echo really what Francis said. Passwords are really one of the most easy and affordable, as in free, thing that you can change to increase your cyber resilience today. So if you do nothing else, I really would love you to deal with your passwords. So don't use the same password across multiple sites. Make sure your passwords are complex, as Francis said. Get those 2-factor authentication actually put in place, especially on your email and social media. So if a criminal does get into your email, as well as pretending to be you or someone you're talking to, they could potentially reset any password for any of your other accounts, because most of us actually go, oh, forgot password, yeah, put my email in. So actually emails have to be protected. And then social media for businesses, that's your shop front in the digital world. So if a criminal gains access and locks you out, it's really difficult to get back into control, because they potentially will change your questions, your security questions, potentially even change the way that you actually get into that account. So very difficult to get back into control, but also you won't be able to control what they are posting or what they are sending out as you. So your customers potentially are at risk. And then, as Francis said, go to Have I Been Pwned, check your exposure, register both for you, but also your domain. So as a company, you can register your domain, do a check on your domain to see whether any actually of your staff members have got any details breached in there, and also get notified if anything else comes up. So I've rattled through that. Thank you very much for listening. And I think we've got questions.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Fiona. And thank you, for highlighting so many different free services that are available to individuals and businesses to try and be that bit more secure and have that extra layer in there. Great to know about your free of charge membership as well for your services, which really, to me, seems like a no-brainer for people to join. So that was really great to hear. Thank you. I think we are now going to, that sort of concludes all of our speakers. So thank you everybody for giving us your time today. It's really, really appreciated, and I've definitely learned a lot. So I'm assuming that everybody on the call has. We have got some questions in the chat, so I shall read our first one. Perhaps you guys may want to have a go at answering. So one from Andy: is it still worthwhile reporting spam TXT for courier fraud and other?
I'll take this one. I saw the question earlier on and I had a quick dig. So as of the 30th of September last year, so that's the earliest that we've got, obviously when we receive a dodgy email, we're told to report it to report@phishing.gov.uk. And when we receive a dodgy text message, you forward it to 7726. So far, they've removed approximately 13,000 scams, 30,000 URLs. Yes, still report it. As I say, the City of London are the lead force for fraud. It helps them build a picture, it helps them understand what organised criminal groups we've got in this county and actually where they can find the value they will.
Yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Andy. Do follow up in the chat if there's anything else you would like clarified on that. And then our next one from Justin, actually, at the Chamber. With staff working from home and more flexible working, does it leave businesses more open to cyber threats? And if so, what can be done to mitigate the risk?
Francis, do you want that one?
How much time do I have to answer that? The big answer is yes.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge that we see is that people working from home are completely oblivious to the attacks that are around them when they're working from home. We've got case study after case study where people are connecting to the same wireless network as their partner, their daughter, their son, whoever, and the son goes on to, and this is a true case, the son goes onto a website, downloads a mod from a gaming website which was infected. That cross-infected the mother's laptop. The mother's laptop was connected by a VPN to the headquarters. So the attack jumped from the son to the mum, down the VPN tunnel to their main office, and then down every other VPN because the VPNs were never set up properly. So the point I'm going to make is, number one, set yourself up with multiple wireless networks at home. So in other words, you can, note the pun, self-isolate your work devices from the rest of the family. So in other words, you phone up BT, Virgin, whoever, it'll take you longer to get through to them than to do what I'm going to say. And then ask them to help you set up like a guest Wi-Fi, but call it my work Wi-Fi. Then you disconnect from the home Wi-Fi and you reconnect to the new Wi-Fi from the same router or Wi-Fi or wireless box. And because an infection can't jump from one Wi-Fi to another Wi-Fi. Simple as that, number one. Number two, if you're going to use a VPN, please make sure that the VPN is configured in such a way that it only allows the traffic that's supposed to go through, not all the traffic. It's very dangerous as far as I'm concerned when you use VPN. Number three, please look at our website, look at our endpoint protection solution, because we put solutions on that would detect behavior and kill attacks 2 in the morning with our team of 250 security specialists. If you do those three things, I can guarantee you've just dropped your risk by 99.99%. One last thing, do not allow your kids to charge their phones on your laptop at home, because if their devices are infected, guess what? You just transfer the infection, like a USB pen, onto the laptop, and now you take that laptop back to the office and you plug into their network. And you see, this is so many similarities to COVID, I think, because it just infection jumps from one to the other, to the other, to the other. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Francis, really useful.
I think if I would sort of go on from Francis' point, also with those devices, think about your IoT devices as well. So when IoT first came about, security was never really an option or thought about really. So a lot of them have default passwords, default admin, which are hard coded, you can't change them. So again, publicly available, potentially a very easy way to get into your network. So on all of your devices, as Francis said, including your router, default passwords need to be changed. And if your IoT device doesn't support security, consider actually whether you need it. If you don't need it, can you upgrade it to a different one that does? And if none of those are options and you still want to have it, make sure you isolate it, like Francis said, so it actually can't go into everything else that's actually important to you.
Thank you.
It's easy.
Thank you
The
both.
people just need to take action. That's the bottom line. Just make it happen. Make your list and do it before you go to sleep tonight.
Thank you. We have another question in the chat from Giovanna. Can you recommend an email provider that's safe to use to prevent hackers? I'm in the process of setting up my second business. Would you recommend any best antiviruses to go for, as I'll be handling other companies' data?
May I answer?
Of course.
Just because I deal with this stuff day in and day out. I'll put the 2 links on there. So let me answer the first question. She said a secure email system. Now, the same logic applies to a secure social media system, because if you configure your email correctly, number one, and you set up proper passwords and you set up multi-factor authentication, then any email solution, in my head, there's only 2. You either use Office 365 or use G Suite. Those are the only 2 options. I prefer the first one better, because with Microsoft, we can implement many more layers of security than we can with G Suite. So hopefully that answers your first question. The second one, again, I'll put a link onto what you should be putting on your system as far as endpoint protection. And if you need any advice, I can demonstrate you, because the stuff we find every time we've installed our systems within the first 17 minutes just shows how many existing threats are completely missed by normal antivirus systems. It's frightening.
Thank you. Thank you, Francis. So, well, I think that concludes our session, and look at that, right on time as well. Unless anyone has anything else to add, I'll sort of wrap up and give our thanks on behalf of Mike and I for everyone that's joined us this morning, delegates included. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it was a slightly longer session, but one that hopefully proved very, very useful and valuable to you and your businesses. We have recorded the session, so you'll be able to access everybody's slides, and you'll be able to see all of those links and things that were shown throughout the session. You'll be able to pick that all up from the recording. That's likely to be ready by the end of the week, and will be sent out to all of you that have attended. So thank you very much. And hopefully, as I say, this is the first of hopefully some more of these types of events and information events. So we look forward to hopefully seeing you again soon. Thank you.